Welcome to episode number 51 of the Life Changing Questions podcast. On today's show, we have a gentleman by the name of Dr. John Demartini. Now, to many of you, he may not need an introduction, but for those of you who haven't heard of him before, he's one of the world's leading authorities on human behavior and personal development. He's the founder of the Demartini Institute, which is a private research and education organization with a curriculum of over 72 different courses covering multiple aspects of human development. He's been in the field for over 44 years. He travels for 360 days per year. He's published over 40 books in 29 different languages. Today, I'm so excited to welcome to the show Dr. John Demartini.
If just one question could immediately transform the quality of your life or the results of your business, would you want to know what that question was? Life and business strategist Kevin Bees interviews success masters to discover their life-changing questions. Welcome to the Life Changing Questions podcast.
So, Dr. Demartini, we heard in the bio in the introduction there that you have over 72 different courses in human development. You've been 44 years of cross-disciplinary research. You do 360 days of travel and running events around the world. And you've got 40 different books in 29 different languages. Like, wow. We'd love to hear a little bit about your passion. What is it that drives you to do all of those things and have done that across a long period of time?
It's just something I can't think of anything else I'd rather do than what I do. I love doing what I do. I had a mission. I wrote down my mission statement at age 17, and I was living on the North Shore of Oahu in 1972. And I met a gentleman named Paul C. Bragg, who I attended a function that he was presenting. And in one night, in 1 hour, one message from this one man awakened inside me a desire to do what I'm doing today. And I've been on a mission ever since. I've been focused on doing what I'm doing. And I don't know, it's what I love doing. I was told when I was a young boy that I would never be able to read, never be able to write, never be able to communicate, never amount to thing, never go very far in life. And I was a high school dropout, and I had learning problems and speaking problems. So nothing greater than having that as a void to want to overcome those. And that was, I think, a catalyst. When I heard Paul Bragg, I thought just maybe I could overcome this and I could do more with my life. And I believed it that night. And my life, there was a lot of challenge along the way, a lot of struggles to get started. But I just, when you have something that's so inspiring to you that nothing stops you, you overcome the challenges slowly but surely, and you make your way through the process. And now I just keep doing it. So that's what I do.
Yeah, wow. And so from 17 until now, clearly you've been inspired very much by Paul C. Bragg, and no doubt countless hundreds of thousands or even millions of people have been influenced by your work. So you mentioned in there about it was the void that you were looking to overcome. So tell us a little bit about that, because I'm guessing there are people in life right now who have a void and they want to overcome it. So could you tell us a little bit more about the void and the values? Because I know you talk about that in your work.
Well, I was born with a foot turned in and a hand turned in, arm turned in, and had to wear braces on arm and leg when I was, very young. And I finally got out of those around age 4. And when I got out of those, all I wanted to do was be on the run. I didn't like being constrained. So I think that had something to do with me traveling the world today. I'm not absolutely certain that that's the only factor, but that's certainly a factor. Because I left home at a very young age, and I was a street kid, and I've been traveling most of my life. And I love traveling the world. I always say the universe is my playground. The But that had something to do with it. And then because I was told I wouldn't be able to read, and I didn't, I just couldn't read. I didn't read until I was 18. I had problems with I couldn't get any meaning and dyslexic type symptoms, and spelling. I've already done some seminars today, and a webinar to 9,000 people this morning. So I constantly am on the go doing speaking.
Incredible. I mean, 30,000 books. I can't imagine there are many more people in the world who have read that many books. The amount of knowledge and information you must have in there is truly inspiring. So if you wanted to share some words of wisdom then with anyone who also has a void about how to overcome that or overcome a challenge in the way that you did, what would you think would be the best advice or wisdom that you would share with them?
Well, every human being at any moment in time is living and filtering their reality through a set of priorities or values in life. And whatever's highest on the value, whatever's most important in their life, the true highest priority that they have, they are spontaneously inspired from within intrinsically to act on it, fulfill it. And whatever's low on the values requires external motivation, extrinsic motivation on the outside to get them to do it. A punishment if they don't do it, a reward if they do it, kind of thing. And if one identifies what's truly valuable to them, the truly most important thing, which I've developed a method for helping people define that, and then set sail as captain of their ship and master their fate in that direction, and orchestrate their life through priorities to fill their day with the highest priority actions that inspire them, their life won't fill up with low priority distractions that don't, and they won't drain themselves by doing things that devalue themselves and scatter and depreciate themselves. And this catalyzes an intrinsic drive that builds catalytic momentum to achieve ever greater achievements. And what happens when you set a goal that's truly aligned with the highest values, the blood glucose and oxygen goes into the executive center of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, the telencephalon. And what this does is it activates the executive center, and the executive center is involved in inspired vision, strategic planning, executing plans, and self-governance. So you become a master of your destiny, not a victim of your history, the moment you prioritize your life and stick to what's truly most meaningful. The problem is that most people are subordinating to other people, comparing themselves to others, and living in their shadows instead of standing on their shoulders, and injecting the values of other people and attempting to be somebody they're not, which weakens and clouds the clarity of their own mission and calling inside, takes them out of the executive center, puts them in the amygdala, and makes them look for immediate gratification to compensate for the unfulfillment. And then they are distracted by immediate gratifying, consumable behaviors instead of actually brand building accomplishments. And this holds them back to the greatness that they innately have inside that's not missing. They just aren't honoring the magnificence of who they are. They keep comparing themselves to others. And I always say, as long as you put people on pedestals, you put yourself in the pit. You have to be able to honor the seer, the seeing, and the seen has to be the same if you want to awaken the magnificence and transcend the insignificance.
Well, and in this day and age, it's so much easier to compare ourselves with social media that we have. And I guess we're always getting to compare the best bits of everyone else that they want to share with us with, I guess, the worst bits that we see for ourselves.
Well, I have a program that I've been teaching now for 28 plus years, going on 29 years. I've done it 1,109 times and presented it. And in there, one of the exercises that I ask my attendees to do is to take the most powerful people that they know of in each of the 7 areas of life. So the great spiritual leaders, the great geniuses, the great business leaders, the great financial leaders, family leaders, social leaders, and physical specimens, whether they be great Olympiads or supermodels or somebody that they look up to. And identify specifically the trait, the actions, or the inactions that they admire in this person. And then go and dig inside and uncover in the unconscious the information of where and when they display and demonstrate these traits until they quantitatively and qualitatively balance. And then what happens is they realize that they are not missing these traits. And the only reason they admired them in the other people is because they actually have them, but they're too humble to admit it. And to actually awaken it and honor the form that it's in, because it's not always in the same form as the people they admire, but they've got the traits. It's just in a different form. And once they awaken the realization that it's not missing in them, they play in a new field of possibility. And they give themselves permission to play a bigger game. And I love doing that because many people are trying to be doing what Ralph Waldo Emerson warned against. imitate and try to envy other people instead of actually realize that if you're admiring them, it's because it's awakening inside you something that you think is there, not there, but it's actually there and dormant. And it's manifesting in a new form. So once I have people own the traits of the greats, as I call it, their greatness emerges. And it happens not in weeks or months. It happens starting at that moment. It's quite amazing.
So own the traits of the greats. I love that. So if we recognize in you that you've written 40 books and you present and you influence and you inspire people, and that's really inspiring to us, well, then that tells us that we have those traits inside of us and that we could be able to step forward and own those traits and apply them ourselves.
Well, what we do is it's not the writing of the books. That's the form.
Okay.
What you would do is maybe it's the determination or the perseverance to achieve something. So now you go digging inside and you ask, where and when do I display incredible perseverance and determination to achieve a consecutive series of actions? And that may be in a totally different area than book writing. Unless you have a high value on book writing, it's not going to manifest in that form. It's going to be in the form of the values that you hold. See, the reason why people are devaluing themselves is because they're comparing themselves to people with a different set of values. And then they're expecting, Einstein said this in his times, that if you're a cat and you expect to be able to swim like a fish, you're going to beat yourself up. Or if you're a fish and you expect to climb a tree like a cat, you're going to beat yourself up. But if you're a cat and you honor you're a cat, you'll climb a tree. So you have to be able to expect, anytime you set goals that are not aligned and congruent with what is truly valuable to you, according to your own hierarchy of values, you're automatically designed to beat yourself up and have what is called a self-depreciative response as a feedback to let you know that you're not being authentic. It's in your authenticity where your greatness shines.
Very interesting. This kind of reminds me a little bit of a book that I'm reading at the moment called Quiet, and the lady in there talks a bit about extroverts and introverts. And of course, we can quite often in leadership, it's revered or encouraged that the leaders need to be loud and brash or maybe the most outspoken. But quite often for introverts, they can be the people who take the time to read, to understand, to learn, and of course then they have a lot more to provide to a leadership situation because they've had a considered view. So really, if I put it another way, it's almost like if you're a leopard and you have spots, own those spots. They're yours, they're there for a reason, embrace them.
Well, until you can love yourself, it's not likely that other people are going to be having an ease at loving you. So, and I always say trying to get rid of half of yourself in order to love yourself is not the key. You don't need to get rid of any part of yourself to love and appreciate yourself. You just need to stop and look at what those parts are doing that are serving you. One of the greatest questions in our life is how is whatever I'm experiencing through my sensory awareness or my motor actions, how specifically does it help me fulfill my mission, my highest priority actions, what I feel is most valuable? And if you honor that question with an answer each day and multiple answers, you'll awaken a deep appreciation for yourself as you are instead of how you think you're supposed to be. Because when we compare ourselves to other people and try to be somebody we're not, we self-depreciate, as I said. And depression is a comparison of your current reality to a fantasy that you're addicted to. If you get addicted to being somebody other than who you are, you're not going to honor the magnificence of who you are. You're not going to appreciate your life. And as you know, gratitude is one of the keys that opens up the gateway of the heart and allows the love that we have for what we do to shine. And we're not going to love ourselves if we keep trying to be somebody anything less than the real magnificence we are.
Great. So really embrace that real magnificence of who we are. Now, you have an in-depth process that helps people uncover the values of who they are. So I know you're running an event coming up in Sydney in September 9th and in Melbourne on 16th of September. And of course, since you're on the road for over 300 days a year, probably in a lot of other cities as well. So what could someone expect if they came along to see that event or attend that event? What might they go through to discover who they really are?
Well, the breakthrough experience is the one I've been doing now for going on 29 years. And that event, what I do in there, I give them principles of human behavior that I've been accumulating and working on and writing and sharing around the world for the last, 44 or 5 years. And what I'm going to do is in that program is I'm going to help them identify specifically what their hierarchy of values are. And I have a very, very methodical, very objective way of doing this. Because if you just ask somebody what their values are, they'll tell you social idealisms and cliches, and they'll tell you all kinds of things. But I'm not interested in what they say. I'm interested in what their life demonstrates. So I look at how they fill their space, how they spend their time, what energizes them, what they spend their money actually on, where they're most organized, where they're most disciplined, what do they think, visualizing, and affirm inside that's actually coming true about how they want their life, what inspires them, what do they converse with other people about most, what is it the most consistent goals that they've set that are coming true, and what do they love reading about, studying about spontaneously. I look at objectively what they actually live, and we structure now prioritization according to that. Because anytime you're trying to do something that's not really meaningful, you're going to beat yourself up, and you're going to think you're sabotaging. You're going to think you can't stay focused, and all this rigmarole psychobabble that comes up with people because they're setting goals that aren't theirs. So I try to do that. Then what I do is, if they decide when they discover their values that they realize, wow, I don't have wealth building on my values, or I don't have a relationship right now on my values, then I give them an option. They can either set goals to match their values, which is fulfillment, or we can shift the values to match the goals that they want. But if they don't have a value and goal congruency, there's no fulfillment. You're going to be banging your head against the wall instead of actually having momentum building. Then I show them how to own the traits of the greats. Then I introduce the Demartini method, which is a method I've been building now since 1973, on how to dissolve phobias, fantasies, resentments, infatuations, grief, almost any emotion that's an imbalanced, polarized emotion that's distracting the space and time in our minds. It's all the noise and all the electronics in the brain that are scattering us. I show how to take each one very methodically, very, very scientifically, how to neutralize each one, integrate them so you're present. Because I'm interested in being, in a sense, purposeful, poised, present, productive, prioritized, and powerful in their life. And so we're showing them how to dissolve all the distractions so they get really concisely focused on what it is that they will accomplish. Then I also show them how to manifest things by a formula that I've been following ever since I met Paul Bragg. It's a formula on step-by-step things to, if you check them off, you're going to get your result. And it's a step-by-step, and I train them on each one of those components. And then we actually go in there and we clear baggage that they've been carrying around in their life. And I don't know what that's going to be until I meet with them. It could be relationship baggage, it could be financial baggage, business baggage, spirituality, belief baggage. I don't know what it's going to be. We show them how to clear out anything that's distracting their minds, that they're subordinating to outer forces and outer people outside them, that's distracting them from being themselves. Because there are 7 basic fears: the fear of not being smart enough or intelligent enough or degreed enough, the fear of failure in business, the fear you won't make money or you'll lose money, the fear of losing loved ones or respected loved ones, the fear of the rejection of people, the fear of not having the beauty, the health, or the vitality, or the strength and stamina to achieve things, and the fear of breaking the morals and ethics of some outside spiritual authority that you're minimizing yourself to. Those 7 fears cloud the clarity of the inspiration that spontaneously is trying to merge out of the person, and I show them how to clear those fears. And it's a very powerful weekend. I mean, it's not a rah-rah thing. It's not standing on chairs. It's a very methodical, reproducible, guaranteed outcome kind of response that I've been working on all these years, that I've taken. I think we've got 80,000 people through that course now.
Wow. 80,000 people have gone through that program. It's incredible. And you said you ran that course.
62 countries we presented that program, and 2 or 3 more coming this year.
Yeah, wow. That's certainly incredible. And it sounds like a fantastic experience then to overcome one of those 7 fears, to clear the baggage, to make sure that you're then clear on your values, so you're living in congruence with who you are, not in comparison to someone else and their values. And I think you made a really valid point in there. I mean, it's something that I see show up frequently in coaching. People come and they consistently will have this challenge whereby they set a goal and they don't take action. But as you pointed out, it's probably because that goal isn't in alignment with their values. If they get in alignment with their values first, then they'll follow through.
Well, the thing is I'm amazed at how many people don't know what they really value. Their life is smacking them in the face with the actions, but they have a fantasy about how they think it should be. For instance, I'll give you an example. I was speaking to about 11,000 people in Philadelphia, and with Donald Trump actually at the time, and I stood up on stage. I said, "How many of you want to be financially independent?" And every hand went roaring up. And I made sure everybody looked around the room and saw every hand up. And I said, it's interesting that we got 100% of the room with their hands up. I said, what percentage of the people actually achieve financial independence? And I heard all kind of numbers out there from 1% to 10%. And I said, it's actually less than 1% worldwide. Amazingly, it is less than 1%. I did the stats. I'm up to date with the stats. And they went, whoa. I said, so isn't it interesting that 99% of you out there are living in a delusion and a fantasy in all probability? You have a fantasy. And what's happening is, in the hierarchy of your values, you actually have a higher value on immediate gratifying purchases of consumables that depreciate in value than you do in actually buying assets that go up in value. And if you haven't discerned between an asset and a liability, or a consumable item that depreciates and something that appreciates, and you don't even know the difference of that, and you keep consuming immediate gratifying behavior, then financial independence is not likely, because you're going to keep buying things. You're not going to have money work for you. You're going to be a slave to money and never its master. So I wake them up on that first, and they're all going, whoa. You know, they kind of smack themselves, and they live in the delusion that they actually want to be financially independent, but that's not really truly what their life demonstrates. So I'm interested in what their life demonstrates and what their actual values are, because that's how they're spending the money. The hierarchy of one's values dictates the financial destiny. So money circulates through the economy from those who value it least to those who value it most. And so I explained to them that, and then I said, now we got a choice here. We can shift our values, or we can quit torturing our lives with self-depreciation, wondering what's wrong with us financially. And I say, if you're interested in changing them, then there's work involved. But we can begin today. But that's totally up to you. But if not, you're going to be sitting there, and you're going to be a statistic that's going to be in the 99%ers until you actually truly value wealth building. And then I give them some tools on how to do that. And they work. But they just got to work it. And people live in a fantasy that they want immediate gratification, which costs them long-term fortunes.
And so that immediate gratification is going to cost the long-term fortunes, because people are investing their money or their resources into consumables and depreciables, and not investing into assets that are going to generate them ongoing returns.
That's exactly what it is. And I'm amazed. They think they want to be wealthy, but when we look at how they spend their money and we look at their disbursements, it's on immediate gratification. And it's interesting, because the people who really value wealth building will take a portion of whatever they earn and they'll put it into savings and investments immediately. And they'll pay themselves first. And they'll know the difference what an asset is, and they'll study it, and they'll study wealth building, and they'll study the mathematics of it, the probabilities of it, and they'll learn about it. And if there's no indication of that, then it's fantasy. I tell people, if you don't know what your assets are right now, you don't know what your liabilities are down to the penny, you don't know what your net worth is, you don't know what you want to live on as financially independent lifestyle, you don't know what the inflation rate is, you don't know what the interest is on the average investment that you yield, and you don't know what the total is you need earning that interest, and you don't know the time frame and the shortfall between what it is that needs and what your actual net worth is, you have no intention of being wealthy financial way. You'll be wealthy in other ways, but not financial wealthy. So they just go, oh my God, it's shocking to them to face the fact. But somebody did that for me at age 28 and turned my financial life around. I'm financially independent because I got woken up at that time. So I try my best to wake them up. I don't give them bullshit. I don't find that's going to serve them. What's going to help them is actually get grounded and get them to understand how human behavior works, and get them onto doing something extraordinary in the area what's meaningful to them. And some people have no desire to do that. But it's better to let them shatter the myths that it's going to happen if they don't have the desire to go out and do it. Better to get them grounded and let them appreciate what they are going to do instead.
Yeah, so know where you are, know where you want to be, and then there's a gap you need to fulfill. But you need to know exactly where you're starting from in order to get there. So that's a really...
Anytime you have a fantasy about what you're going to do that's not congruent, depression is a comparison of your current reality to a fantasy. As long as you're addicted to that fantasy that somehow it's going to miraculously occur, you're going to pray for it to occur, you're going to torture your life away and miss out on the magnificence of what you really have the capacity to create.
Yeah, okay. So we've got to make sure then that our fantasy is something that we can actually move towards. If it's something that's way over here and we're never going to get to, then stop comparing and stop beating ourselves up.
Like the word fantasy, I'd say a dream. It's just language, because different people use different languages. A fantasy is an assumption that you're going to have something that's one-sided, or something that's incongruent with who you are. A dream is something you have a strategy for. That's the difference in the executive center. When you get congruent and the blood glucose goes into the executive center, you see a vision that's inspiring to you. You see a strategy on how to get it, and you're actually willing to act on it with the executive center, and you're galvanized to do it and not distracted by amygdala responses. That is what allows great achievement. And that is scientifically reproducible in any human being as long as they finally wake up to what's really valuable to them or shift it. Because you can shift values. I can stack up and make shifts in values on people. I've had a lot of people that have paid me to go and say, no matter what I'm doing, I can't get ahead financially. And I'll sit with them and I'll sit down with them for a couple of hours or whatever, and I'll shift their value structure and show them how to do that. And 2 years later, 3 years later, they're already on their way to being financially independent. It's mind-blowing because they just build momentum after that. But they have to have the congruency between what they say they want, what's really, truly what they want. Those have to be congruent. And they have to be strategized because people think they're going to get something done. But I've not seen any great achievements without some strategy behind it.
I think the penny's really beginning to drop on this. So really have that clear, not fancy, but clear dream, but is a dream that is congruent with who you are and what you want and your values. You have that vision, you have a strategy, and you go and take action on it. And that can make the difference in the fastest time.
Your vitality in life is directly proportionate to the vividness of your vision. And your vision is crystal clear to the degree that you can see it through. There's a friend of mine who's in Australia. He's an amazing guy. He's definitely on his way to being a billionaire. And he's just extraordinary. And he is a visionary. He literally gets down. He's come to my master planning program where we master plan our objectives. And we get down to the finest details. So we see everything and we mitigate every risk. I learned that from Donald. You got to think of every possible thing and go wrong. You have to mitigate the risk in advance and have foresight. People with foresight go farther than people with hindsight. Animals live in hindsight and telenomics. Great leaders live in foresight and telelogics. They have a purposeful mission that they feel called to do. They see it through in their mind's eye. That's got strategies on doing it. They take action, so there's no hesitation on it, and they get it done. And a lot of people are just hoping and praying and thinking kind of a metaphysical thing is going to happen for them instead of getting actually into action, very prioritized. If you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, it's designed to go into low priority distractions that don't. Entropy takes over any mind that's not negentropically focused.
So is that kind of like you're green and growing or you're ripe and rotting?
That's exactly the statement I've said for years. If you're green, you're growing. If you're not, you're ripening and rotten. Exactly.
Perfect. Now you mentioned your master planning session. Now I've seen some information on that. You go through a really detailed process, and I think you have something like 2,000 questions in that process to help people get really clear and plan so they have that foresight.
I do. I sit down with people. Well, what I do is I give them a stick that has the questions on them. It's a format, and it goes through all 7 areas. So it has a generic component in all 7 areas. So we're going to be planning not only business, finance, relationship, social leadership capacities, intellectual pursuits, business, all areas, all 7 areas. So it's like me sitting there on their overlooking their shoulders and just asking consulting questions on them and holding them accountable. So it's 2,000 questions that hold them accountable in each area. And it's shocking to see where the struggles they're going through, all of a sudden they come through it because they can see how they can get through it now because they've been asking the right questions. And as a quality of our life is based on the quality of the questions we ask. If we ask questions that equilibrate to mind, that are congruent with our objectives, enormous things of energy and enormous creativity and actions come out of it. But if not, if we're asking the wrong questions, we keep distracting ourselves. This is what many people do. They're not even knowing they're doing it.
And perfect, and that's exactly the topic of the show, around the quality of the questions and how the quality of the questions you ask yourself impact the quality of your life. So with that being true, is there one question that you've asked that's had the biggest positive impact on your life, or maybe even for the people that you serve, a question you've asked them that's had a major impact on their life?
Well, there's 7 questions that I mentioned in the breakthrough experience. What is that I would absolutely love to do, that I feel called to do, that it's impossible for me not to take action on? And I write that down. Then the next one is, how do I get handsomely and beautifully paid to do that? Because I believe that you deserve to have your vocation, your vacation. I don't need a vacation away from what I love doing. People think it's nuts, but this is what I love doing. So they go, what do you do to chill out? Chill out from what? This is what I love doing. This is chill out. And so they basically say, that's crazy because they're projecting their values onto me and imagining my lifestyle would be not fulfilling to them because they got a different set of values. But if you really do something you love to do, like Warren Buffett, he taps dance to work. He loves doing it, and he's got energy. And I think that's the way to do it. The people I know that are doing something they love, they're even in 70s and 80s, they're still cranking, 90s even. So identifying that. The third question is how can I get handsome pay to do it? The third one is, what are the 7 highest priority action steps I can do today that's going to move me one step closer? The highest priority actions I can do today that would give me one step closer towards that goal. Then what are the obstacles that I might run into, and how do I solve them in advance? How do I mitigate all potential risks that are along the way? How do I solve them in advance? So I'm foresighting it and preparing for it. And by the time when you do that, you find out that most of those things don't even come about anyway, but at least you're prepared for them. That way you don't react, you act proactively. And then they ask us, whatever I did, what worked and what didn't work? Ask yourself what worked and what didn't work, so you metric it every day. And after that, you ask, how can I do whatever I did more efficiently and effectively? And you just keep refining every one of the serial steps that you take towards your objectives. And how do I do it more efficiently? How do I do it more effectively? And then the last question, which is most important, is how did whatever I experienced today, whether supportive or challenging, how did it help me fulfill my mission? How does it help me fulfill my mission? If you do those 7 questions, I guarantee a different catalyst in life, a different achievement level. Just those 7 questions can make a difference. I got so many questions, I could go probably days on this. Those 7 questions are very powerful questions.
Okay, and so let me just make sure I got that first question right. So what is it that I'd love to do, that I feel called to do?
But what is it that I would absolutely love to do, that I'm inspired to do, I feel it's my mission, and it's impossible for me not to take action on it? What is that? What is it? Because what it is, it's the most spontaneous, intrinsically driven action you do.
Okay.
In my case, it's teaching. I teach every day, and I'm either doing radio or television or newspapers or magazines or webinars or podcasts or speaking or consulting or something. And if I'm not doing that, I'm researching and learning everything I can so I have something to share with people. So if I look at what I do spontaneously that I love doing, that is most meaningful to me, you got to find that. Motivation is a symptom, never a solution for human mastery.
Okay.
You want to be called and inspired by what you do, not be having to need motivation on the outside. I don't need motivation on the outside to do what I do.
Okay, because more so, if you have this thing that you're inspired to do, you're inspired. You want to take action because it's coming from inside.
You need motivation. You won't find one person in the last 45 years that's ever known me that's said, "Oh, you got to motivate John to do what he's doing."
Yeah.
Doesn't exist.
And John,
it's just not real. Anything low on my badge, cooking, driving, anything like that, I delegate.
Yeah.
So if I'm not inspired to do something, I delegate. I surround myself with people that do that. I haven't cooked since I was 24. I haven't driven a car in 27 years. I don't do things that aren't inspiring to me because I'd rather delegate that and surround myself with people that would love to do that. So I got people around me that love doing what they do while I do what I love to do.
Yeah, okay, that makes a heap of sense. So you do the things that you love to do. And so tell me then, imagine we maybe have some people listening on the call and they work in maybe a corporate career and maybe it's not fully fulfilling for them. And they ask this question and they come up with something like, you know what, the thing that I'm called to do would be to travel. I want to travel. There would probably be a challenge between, hey, here's my reality, I'm stuck working, paying for mortgage, etc. And then the thing that I'm called to do is travel. How can someone reconcile that and then go ahead and implement?
Oh, it's simple. I deal with people every day just about with that question. First of all, until you decide as an entrepreneur exactly what you want to do, you're going to be overruled by somebody else telling you what to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just a common thing. Any area of your life you don't empower, somebody's going to overpower. That's just a law of the universe. You may as well face that. If you don't get clear and you don't put together a business plan and a strategy plan to go and do what you love and get paid handsomely to do it that exceeds the income you currently do, you have trapped yourself because of your own behavior. Nothing to do with outside. And all the excuses we give is simply excuses. They're all just bogus excuses. You have to stop and value yourself and value your life enough to say, what is it I really want, and get clear on it. That's the first thing. That's what I do in the breakthrough experience. Now, the second thing is, what you're doing right now is not a mistake. You made decisions based on what you thought was the greatest advantage or disadvantage at that moment when you made that decision to do it. So now you want to ask, how specifically is the job duties I'm doing right now helping me fulfill what I'm going to do in the long run so I can see it on the way and build momentum instead of seeing it in the way until I can delegate that to somebody else and get on with what I'm going to do. Because you're only going to have fulfillment in life by two things. Either you're going to do what you love and delegate everything else, or you're going to link what you're doing temporarily to do what you love as on the way until you can delegate. If you master those two things, you'll gradually see that that job isn't a mistake. It's just a stepping stone to something greater. But you have to see how this is going to get you there, and you have to have a clear idea where it's going to take you to link it there. And so if you never take the time to master plan your life in the executive center of the brain, you're not going to have a masterful life. You're going to be living a quiet life of desperation, not a life of inspiration. That's just the way it is. So you might as well face that and say, hey, I'm worth it, and start focusing on it. It starts with prioritizing your actions and delegating. You cannot have an inspired life without delegation. You're going to be multitasking trivial actions, and you're not going to be doing the most inspiring actions.
Okay, which makes a heap of sense to me then. So I get the privilege of doing these interviews, and I love that bit. This bit inspires me. I would do interviews with people like yourself all day, every day. If you want to sit here for 10 hours, I would sit here in 10 hours and listen because I get so much value. But of course, the other bits and pieces, the editing, the transcribing, no, can't do it. That has to be delegated.
But exercise is wise to do. I've taught this all over the world. You make a list of everything you do in a day. Everything. No matter what the size of that action is.
Yep.
Every action you do, personal and professional. Next to it, you put a column next to it, and you write down how much does it produce per hour? What does it produce? What's my return on my time there? What does it produce per hour? Next to that, another column, how much meaning does it have? Because sometimes you'll sacrifice something for something that's more meaningful. The next one is how much would it cost me to replace somebody doing it, to delegate it? Every bit of the cost, not just their salaries, but every cost. And the last one's how much time spent on it. If you do those 5 columns, your life changes because you'll see where the spreads are, and you'll see where you're majoring in minors and minoring in majors, and you'll see where you're in your way because you're holding on to the lower priority stuff, which devalues you, which lowers your energy, which makes you not have confidence in taking risks and going for it. And then if you don't surround yourself with people that you can delegate things that are greater at doing it than you are, you'll trap yourself by hiring X people instead of A people. And then you won't get to play in a position because you're having to micromanage X people all the time. You need to surround yourself with people that love to do it so you don't have to think about it anymore. You're on to doing what you love doing. So I'd rather do that and get on with my life and do what I love to do than sit there and bog yourself down. So if you're doing something that can make you thousands an hour or even millions an hour, and you're doing something that you could delegate for $50 an hour, that's insanity. You delegate those things out. You delegate the editing, you delegate the transcribing, whatever the things are. You delegate all lower priority things and get on with the most meaningful actions. And that way you just keep interacting with the most powerful people and let somebody else take care of that.
Good. I love it. I think that's a really, really great example. So the 5 key things then. So write down everything you do, work out what's the ROI per hour, so what you can get from that. The meaning is the next column. What is the cost to replace it? And what is the time that you spend doing it? Cost to delegate it. Replace it. And then how much time? And so you do those 5 things, it will change your life. I think that's a really fantastic tool, and I can't wait to jump on and do that straight after this call. That's going to be very valuable to me. Now, one of the pieces I want to talk about then, since you're talking about delegating those things, you love to travel, you love to speak, and in order to do that, there needs to be a big piece of marketing. I mean, over the last 40 plus years, you've had to communicate who you are. There was a point where people didn't know who Dr. Demartini was. So what tips or advice have you got around an area of marketing? If someone's starting off in this profession, they do want to speak or they do want to help people in this way, what tips would you advise there?
Well, we could have some fun here. You know, when I first started speaking, back when I was 18, really, I just started speaking.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of guy that if I'm in a bathroom, I start talking to people. If I'm in a restaurant, I start speaking. If I'm in a restroom, I don't care where it is, I start speaking. And because I always say those with a mission have a message.
Uh-huh.
And you can't stop bringing out your message. And what happens, you may get rejected by people, but I'd rather have, I started doing elevator seminars in Houston, and we'd pack an elevator with people and start doing a talk on it, a 28-second speech. And when I was in practice years ago, I got 40 new patients in 1 month. I did $120,000 worth of business out of an elevator in 1 month. So it's just a matter of you being clear on your mission and what your message is and share that message. If you have a bigger desire to get your message out in the world than any obstacles that come your way, you get your message out there. That's simple. You have to have a drive bigger than the obstacle. Otherwise, you're going to come up with excuses with the obstacles. The second thing is I made a list of every possible vehicle to get my message out. Radio, television, newspapers, magazines. They didn't have podcast and internet and Facebook at those days. But when I started, I went to radio, television, newspapers, magazines, speaking, conferences. I didn't care where it was. I went out and did it. I had my own TV show in my early 20s, and I started to do whatever it took to get the message out there. And slowly but surely, and I kept metrics on it. I keep metrics on everything I do. I've already typed in that we're having this conversation. Then I keep a metric of everything I do and roughly what the numbers are and to see if I'm on track with what I say I'm going to do. And keeping metrics on it, I think, are essential. And we've reached a lot of people, 4.5 billion people with radio, television, newspapers, magazines, movies, everything. We've done 25 movies now, and we just keep going out with different mediums. And we just keep going. So you just have to have a cause bigger than your obstacle. That's the key to get the message out there. Okay. I delegate all the technology. A Skype I can do, but the webinars I have people they do all that. I just show up on the screen. That's all I do. But I hire people that know how to do that because I'm not tech savvy. That's not my thing. I don't want to do a $20 and $50, $100 an hour job. I want to do what I do best and just do and delegate that. So I surround myself with people who know how to do those things. And then they help me do it. You're helping me do it right now. You're helping me and I'm helping you. That's the win-win out of this thing. We're both helping each other get our messages out into the world. This is the brilliance of it.
Big win-win. And the key thing then from a marketing point of view, if your cause is greater than the obstacles, you're going to find a way you're going to make it happen. You'd go out there and get in front of any place. And knowing that you've been able to sell 120 plus thousand from a 28-second elevator pitch, that's why you can talk so fast and so clearly.
Well, I always say your congruence determines your fluence.
Okay.
Fluency is congruency. If you're congruent with what it is, you spontaneously don't have to think about what you're about to say. It comes spontaneously out of you. And that's the key if you're trying to get a message out there. Anytime you speak outside your core competence in an area that's not known, you're automatically going to run into resistance from the universe to let you know to get back to what you're known on. No, start with what you know and let what you know grow as you grow this momentum.
Start what you know and let what you know grow. I think that's a really great analogy. And in terms of my next question was around your bucket list. In that sometimes we have in life some things that we want to achieve. If there's one thing in your life that you still want to go and accomplish or achieve, or is there one thing that you've done that you've been really proud to have accomplished?
Oh, I still have about 4,000 things I'm still working on. I've got a plenty of list. I've got what's sitting on this computer is sitting on top of 2 of 4 volumes of my goals. So there's lots of them. But I keep reviewing my goals and my objectives constantly. I research and write them on all the time. But I have one goal that I still haven't reached every country on the face of the earth. I've been to 129 countries. I have not gotten to every country with my message. I have students in every country now because of social media and all the seminars and things. But I haven't been to every country on putting my feet on it. So I intended to go to all of them. That's one of the reasons I live on the ship, the world, because it goes to all the countries around the world that's got any form of water near it, and that increases the odds. So I'm working on that goal. I wanted to have at least 1,000 books reference my work. We're at about 500 right now. We're about halfway there. I want to write more books. I've got a whole bunch of books that are going to be coming out. So there's lots of goals that I have. There's people that I want to make an influence on. We've got all the kings and queens and princes and princesses of Africa that we're working on a project with. So I have goals that are very, very meticulously listed out, and some of them are slow, some of them are longer. Some are worldwide goals, some are long-term goals, some are immediate gratifying goals. I have all kinds of goals that I'm working on. If you don't have goals to live for, you got goals to die for.
Tell us about this project with the kings and queens and princes of Africa. That sounds very interesting.
There's a royal heritage out of Africa, and what they're involved in is the normal political structures of Africa have been shifting over the last decades. And so the normal structures of some of the rural areas were kings and queens and princes and princesses and things of this structure. And now they're getting social political structures and republics and democracies that are different. And so the kings are kind of diminishing in their power because people are moving from the rural area into the major cities, into the urban areas. And so they don't want to completely forsake their heritage. And they're gathering together and being trained. I'm involved in the training of that to try to bring those back up and participate and engulf both of these. So they're both used together so they can work as a team to help the people. So that's a project we have.
Sounds like a very powerful project that's going to positively impact a lot of people.
Well, I'm very grateful. I always say that when you're grateful for what you got, you get more to be grateful for, and I'm blessed with lots of things to be working on that are grateful to me, very much.
And so with 40 books as well, you're grateful to have written 40 plus books. I think it was 44 maybe, was it? Or 40 books, and in 29 plus different languages. What else do you have to say? What else do you want to write about? What else is going to come out?
Well, I have probably 300 books that are in the making right now.
Oh.
There's more. We have manuscripts. I've been blessed to study many different fields, and I wanted to make contributions to different fields. So I'm constantly writing on different fields. So not all of them in personal development. Some are involved in finance and economics. Some are involved in biology. Some are involved in healthcare. Some are involved in social political systems. Some in anthropology. So I have a lot of loves in a lot of areas, and I'm kind of a polymathic guy that loves to study and integrate that and put that out there. So I'm working on those volumes. I'm sharing some of my advanced courses are in these fields. So I get to lecture on those fields too. Personal development is just the beginning. And when you start mastering your life, you realize you have a cause bigger than yourself. You want to contribute in some area of specialty. And I want to have some knowledge to help my students in that area too.
Yeah, wow. Like, very, very inspiring. And you said you read over 30,000 books. Like, if there was just one, if you had to pick one, if someone could only read one book, and I know that's a very difficult question, but...
The book when people ask me that, I tell them to read volumes 1 and 2. It's actually one book, but it's volumes 1 and 2 by Mortimer Adler, called The Great Books of the Western World, The Great Ideas. It's called Syntopican Volumes 1 and 2. Syntopican Volumes 1 and 2. And what this is a synthesis of the greatest ideas by the greatest minds over the last 2,700 years in the Western world. And it's a summary of their ideas and the greatest teachings that they've synthesized. And I believe that that's the two best books that I could recommend to any human being who wants to learn how to master their life.
All right. I'm off to the bookshop to get hold of those. It doesn't sound like the kind of book I want to be reading on a...
You can get it at the bookshop. You'll have to get it you'll either have to buy the entire Britannica series.
Yep.
Or you'll have to get a used version of it.
Yes.
It comes in the Great Books of the Western World by Britannica. It's a 60-volume set. It's the whole set is a great educational read. But these first 2 volumes are the best.
Fantastic. Absolutely great advice and wisdom on today's call. I usually sometimes, Dr. Demartini, when I listen to podcasts, I like to put them on at twice the speed to get the information quicker. I think with yours, there's so much information here. I'm going to have to put it on at half the speed to make sure I can absorb it all. So I really appreciate all of the time, the energy that you've given with us today. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to share my mission and message with people.
And for everyone still listening, if you want to find out more about the events that are coming up, definitely go and check out drdemartini.com. And I will put all of the information of his books and his resources that he's mentioned in today's show on the page notes at kevinbees.com/podcast. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks so much for listening to the Life Changing Questions podcast with your host, Kevin Bees. We'll catch you next time.
Hey, you're in bonus time right now on the Life Changing Questions podcast, and I've got 3 bonuses I'd like to share with you, and I call them the 3 S's. The first S is for show notes. Don't forget, you can get all of the details of the show, including the names of the books that were mentioned, the key people that were mentioned, on kevinbees.com. The second S is subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to the show. We're going to be releasing a new episode every single week, and our guests are just getting better and better. And don't forget the third S, share it. Your friends, family, colleagues, loved ones are really going to appreciate it when you share such great content with them. That's it from me, and make sure you're asking life-changing questions this week.